I hope so.
Okay. Go ahead then, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Honorable Chairman and members of the Judicial and Bar Council. Should I have the good fortune of being appointed Chief Justice, I will bring to this lofty position my 39 continuous years of service in government, 19 years in the Office of the Chief State Counsel of the Department of Justice, and 20 years in the judiciary. I joined the government and rose from the ranks through devotion to duty, integrity, commitment to excellence, without reliance on any personal or political connections, but always with the assistance of the divine providence, the unseen hand which charted the course of my career in government. It is my long years of service in the government which helped shape my judicial philosophy and my reform agenda. My government service started when I was still under bar. I took the screening examination here in the Supreme Court, and I was hired as a law clerk with a salary of 500 pesos a month. That was in February of 1973. Later on, I served in the Office of Chief Justice Fred Ruiz Castro. So what are the lessons that I learned while I was in the Supreme Court during that early time in my career? I was already at the time, as early on understood the importance of preserving judicial independence, and it was through my short encounter with Chief Justice Roberto Concepcion. The wholesome working environment in the Supreme Court at that time also fostered the spirit of professionalism and my adherence to integrity in public service. It was also during my stint in the office of Fred Ruiz Castro, the former Chief Justice, that I come to realize that docket congestion is the most serious problem of the judiciary. At that time, there were already 400,000 cases pending in court, from the lowest level up to the Supreme Court. And Chief Justice Fred Ruiz Castro was very much concerned of these clogged court dockets. So he proposed to President Marcos the creation of a presidential commission which studied alternative modes of dispute settlement, and that gave birth to the Katarungang Pambarangay Law, Presidential Decree 1508, which I helped draft during my service in the Supreme Court under Chief Justice Fred Ruiz Castro. The neighborhood conciliation system proved to be very effective. I know this for a fact because for a long period of time during my stay in the Department of Justice, I was a member of the Lupong Tagapamayapa. Later on, I was recruited by the Chief State Counsel whom I met in the Katarungang Pambarangay project to work in the Department of Justice. As I was first hired as State Counsel 1, then I became State Counsel 2, State Counsel 3, 4, 5, 6, then Assistant Division Chief, then Division Chief, and finally Assistant Chief State Counsel. In the Department of Justice, I served 8 Secretaries of Justice, beginning from Vicente Abad Santos, Macaraig, and so forth, until the last one was Secretary Chofisto Gingona. And it was during the incumbency of 3 presidents, President Ferdinand Marcos, President Corazon Cojuangco Aquino, and President Fidel Ramos, who appointed me to the Sandigan Bayan. During the incumbency of President Marcos, I was a junior lawyer, so I worked in the background. But I had a golden opportunity of working directly with President Corazon Aquino and President Fidel B. Ramos, who awarded me a Presidential Medal of Merit for my exemplary service to the government during the peace negotiations. At the Department of Justice, I have worked on diverse and significant legal and constitutional issues confronting the political branches of the government during tranquil and normal times and during perilous and trying times in our national history, from the effectivity of the 1973 Constitution, the Freedom Constitution, or the Proclamation Number 3, which was promulgated by President Corazon Aquino during the existence of the revolutionary government and under the 1987 Constitution. What are the lessons that I learned at the Department of Justice? First, it is loyalty to the institutions of government, to the Constitution and the law. I have learned through my long service in the government that public officials come and go, but institutions remain. So we should all be loyal to the institutions of government, the Constitution that gives it life and substance, and to the laws that gives it form. Second, I also learned that it is important that there be stability and predictability in our legal system. The opinions of the Secretary of Justice, although persuasive in character, establish precedents or rules intended to guide future actions. So it is imperative that legal questions are consistently decided in accordance with law so that persons similarly situated can be guided in their action and expect the same ruling in the future. This is important for stability and predictability in our legal order. The third lesson that I learned is that the political branches of the government are equally concerned with the constitutionality of their actions. The Secretary of Justice as Attorney General renders opinion for all heads of government, departments, bureaus, and offices, the Office of the President, members of Congress, constitutional commissions. And in the course of this work, I came to realize that legislators, together with the President, are so much concerned with the constitutionality of their actions. And that is precisely why they ask the Secretary of Justice if their actions are within constitutional bounds. It is only when actual cases are elevated to the court that the power of judicial review is invoked and exercised. So in the first place, the political branches of the government, Congress, and the Office of the President would have the first crack of determining the applicability of the Constitution to whatever decisions they may take in the course of their exercise of their functions. They have all the vital information that they need in making policy decisions. The President especially has access to security and intelligence information, technical studies, empirical data, which are not available to the court. And therefore, it is for this reason that I believe that the judiciary should, in the exercise of its expanded power of judicial review, should exercise circumspection and utmost care.
How many more minutes, Justice Tess?
Just maybe 2 minutes, Your Honor.
Okay ba? Okay, sige.
So I also learned
with that promise of 2 minutes.
2 long minutes. I also understood the importance of technology. At first, we were using electric typewriters. Then we shifted to computers and word processors. It was a difficult adjustment, but it turned out to be very good in the long run. So I believe that we should emphasize also the introduction of technology in government service. I had greater exposure to this when I was promoted to the Sandigan Bayan and later on to the Supreme Court. So at the Sandigan Bayan, what did I learn? You know, I was not I was not from the judiciary. I came from the Department of Justice. But my work in the Department of Justice helped a lot in the discharge of my functions in the Sandigan Bayan. And that is where I learned that experience really is the best teacher. So when I took over the Coco Levy case, in 6 months, I was able to decide that case the decision of that case has long been delayed. It has been in court for 16 years already. Now, because of my exposure to legal issues, legal problems in the Department of Justice, it took me a very short period of time to dispose of that case. I also was able to harness the legal knowledge that I gained in the Department of Justice and was able to use it for the benefit of all judges and all members, together with the justices in the judiciary. The step increments, which is allowed by law since 1982, was not applied to the judiciary. It was already 1997 when I joined the judiciary, and that was the only time that I initiated the process of applying this step increment to all members of the judiciary, and true enough, it was approved by the Supreme Court, and because of that, all judges and justices now enjoy the step increment, which allowed them to have a salary of the next salary grade without being promoted, simply by their long service in the judiciary. Now, I also learned that the judiciary is not for the weak of heart. It's not for the timid, and for one who is afraid to take not only a great responsibility, but a responsibility which may cause a tremendous personal consequence, not only to oneself, but also to one's family. I went through this in the course of my work in the Department of Justice. So I was given the fortitude and the courage, without any fear of consequence, to deal with cases involving powerful and influential persons. I have understood since then that public office is to be wielded for the common good and not for personal gratification. I learned too that keen understanding of the government bureaucracy is important. Having risen from the ranks, I understood the plight of government employees and their sensibilities, even those in the lowest echelon of government. So as presiding justice, I avoided any appearance of extravagance. I was very judicious in the expenditure of public funds. And in my 4 years as presiding justice, I did not purchase an official vehicle for myself. I just used the vehicle that I inherited from my predecessor. And that was until I was promoted to the Supreme Court. I saw to it that promotions and allocations of court resources were based on objective and uniform criteria. I treated my colleagues with courtesy and respect so that I can motivate them to cooperate with me in the judicial reform programs that are being undertaken at that time in coordination with the Supreme Court. And this earned me the Supreme Court Judicial Reform Award from Chief Justice Hilario Davide. I also knew that it is important to be able to reach out to other government institutions and agencies, because it is only in this way that you can expand your vision and perspective and be able to avail of the resources that can improve work efficiency. In the Supreme Court, I'd like to inform the JDC that I am now the working chair of the First Division. I have been elected by my peers as Vice